Now, not all unforgettable Star Wars occurrences live long in the memory because of the joyful feelings you remember experiencing during a first watch, or even play. Sometimes the sheer amount of trauma and heartbreak caused by a rather distressing moment is so powerful, it's honestly difficult to ever fully let go of just how devastating, terrifying, or shocking certain scenes really were in this popular franchise. I'm Gareth, this is What Culture Star Wars, and here are 10 Star Wars moments that will haunt you forever. Number 10, I Can't Swim, Andor. The first season of Tony Gilroy's Andor is the sort of show you simply cannot take your eyes off for a second. A major reason for that is the many complex and utterly captivating figures that Rogue One, a Star Wars story prequel series focuses on throughout, with perhaps the most engaging of the lot being the Narkina 5 floor manager Kino Loy, played by Andy Serkis in a surprise return to the galaxy far, far away. Going from being a rather stern prisoner looking to get their work done as efficiently as possible until the point he would eventually be released, to a valuable ally of Cassian Andor once it became clear that none of the prisoners were actually getting freed, Loy goes on quite the journey during his few appearances. That's what makes the revelation that he can't swim just as the inmate's freedom is finally just a swim away such an upsetting moment. One that fans are still haunted by, even with it being confirmed by the actor that Loy thankfully didn't die here. It was an incredibly painful, emotional gut punch for viewers to see Kino work so hard to help his fellow prisoners escape the facility, only to stop at the last hurdle. And the words, "I can't swim," will now forever leave a pit in the stomachs of those who put themselves through the whole Narkina 5 ordeal. Now I've got a question for you. What line hits you right in the feels every time you watch Star Wars? You let me know in the comments section down below. Number 9, Grievous on a terrifying rampage, Star Wars Clone Wars. The General Grievous, who made his debut in the Star Wars Clone Wars animated micro-series, was an absolute menace, and a terrifying one at that. This is perhaps best shown during a sequence that likely gave many a youngster a few nightmares involving Grievous trying to get his many hands on Chancellor Palpatine on Coruscant. As Jedi Master Shaak Ti tried her best to protect the eventual Emperor, the relentless cyborg proceeded to brutally carve, boot, and stomp his way through the clones and guards tasked with stopping him. And with viewers knowing precisely what the Jedi-killing force was capable of, as the slashes and screams grew louder the closer he got to the Jedi protectors during this sequence, the fear was real. Grievous then refusing to give up his pursuit and scrambling down the side of the building while the Chancellor traveled via elevator, again felt like something ripped out of a damn horror movie. It didn't matter how bravely the likes of Shaak Ti and pals fought, there was simply no stopping this mechanical demon. And his vicious rampage here is something that still haunts those who grew up on the underrated show to this day. Hell, even in 2024, first-time viewers of the Genndy Tartakovsky show will no doubt be shook by the unstoppable monster too. You know, if they forget about the far less threatening version of the General seen in subsequent movies and TV shows. Number 8, Jango Fett loses his head, Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Now this sudden decapitation didn't just haunt one poor youngster, it did the same to those watching Episode 2 Attack of the Clones too. As the Jedi arrived to help Obi-Wan Kenobi, Anakin Skywalker and Padme Amidala within the Petranaki arena, a showdown or two between the clone template Jango Fett and the Force-wielding warriors was inevitable. Sure enough, viewers got to witness Boba Fett's father gun down one Jedi Master, R.I.P. Coleman Trebor, before resuming his fight with Mace Windu as the battle intensified. It was here when one of the most harrowing and unforgettable kills in Star Wars history went down though, with Jango learning the hard way exactly how powerful and skilled the greatest champion of the Jedi Order truly was. Unable to soar away due to his jetpack being damaged by a reek attack, Jango's head was horrifically separated from his body with one swift, merciless lightsaber swing. His head is even seen tumbling out of the helmet if you keep an eye on its shadow. Yep, that is grim. This is all then eventually followed by the equally haunting image of Jango's devastated son holding his dad's Mandalorian helmet in his hands. It's heavy and somewhat grisly stuff. Especially for a PG-rated movie, that cruel, life-changing moment understandably traumatized poor Boba, and it's a shockingly cold-blooded act viewers of all ages will never be able to forget either. Number 7, The Wampers Cave, Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. There's nothing quite like a good old-fashioned practical monster leaving you well and truly petrified of going to sleep with the lights off. And that's an experience just about every single spooked kid likely went through after they first sat down to watch a little movie by the name of Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, of course. After being attacked by the furry white beast known as a Wamper, Luke Skywalker finds himself hanging upside down within its cave, with the carnivorous animal seen chomping away at our hero's tauntaun. The whole intense scene plays out like it belongs within a monster movie. The fear felt as Luke desperately squirmed and attempted to use the Force to retrieve his trusty lightsaber was palpable, with the Wamper creeping ever closer and threatening to also gobble up the son of Anakin Skywalker on Hoth. Thankfully, Luke was able to cut his way out of trouble before it was too late. However, that still didn't stop youngsters from looking over their shoulders during their next snow day, fearful of being similarly jumped by the terrifying creature George Lucas and Irving Kershner first unleashed all those decades ago. That these scenes still continue to haunt new viewers is a testament to the incredible effects work used to bring both the original Wampa puppet and the suit seen in the 1997 special edition to screens. Number 6, The Aunt and Uncle Skeletons, Episode 4, A New Hope. Sticking with those original trilogy scenes that were scorched into many an innocent child's brains after their first visit to the galaxy far, far away, 1977's Star Wars contained one of the darkest deaths you'll ever find in a U-rated movie. After learning the apparent truth about his father and being offered the chance to learn the ways of the Force with Obi-Wan Kenobi, but initially turning it down, the group stumble on a blasted sandcrawler. Luke Skywalker then realizes that the stormtroopers who did this, the ones looking for the droids accompanying them, would likely be heading to his home next. He was right too. By the time he made it back to the Lars homestead though, it was too late. The stormtroopers had already burned it and his family to a crisp. But just to really hammer home how barbaric these Imperial soldiers could be, George Lucas shockingly threw out the charred skeletal remains of the farm boys Aunt Beru and Uncle Owen for Luke to discover. It's still an absolutely grim and shocking visual to watch back almost 50 years later, and it will forever remain one of the most unexpectedly haunting images in Star Wars history. Cheers for checking out this What Culture Star Wars list that will haunt you forever. There's more where that came from, baby, if you hit that subscribe button down below. Number 5, Thorns' Last Stand, Star Wars The Clone Wars. Though many a clone ended up meeting their end throughout the animated Star Wars The Clone Wars series, the death of one particular trooper hit a little harder than most. No, I'm not talking about Fives, yes that was very sad, but we're talking about Thorn here. During the Season 6 episode Crisis of the Heart, Commander Thorn and a garrison of shock troopers accompanied Padme Amidala and Rush Clovis to Scipio. Their mission was simple. They needed to keep the two safe during their trip. That soon became a difficult task though, after Count Dooku opted to launch an invasion of the planet as he attempted to frame Clovis and make it look like the new head of the banking clan was launching a separatist takeover. Sensing there was little they could do for Amidala, Thorn contacted her via comlink and told her to find a way off-world. His troops were then completely surrounded by droids. Even as the soldiers were being picked off one by one, viewers still hoped that the brave clones would find some way to overcome the odds, but alas, it wasn't to be. In one of the most haunting final stands in all of Star Wars, a Commander Thorn who'd watched all of his brothers be violently massacred bravely went full Boromir, refusing to stop fighting even after being blasted by the enemy. In the end though, the numbers were just too great, and the clone was shot to death in surprisingly brutal fashion by the clankers. But his brave actions here and the impactful image of his gunned-down body being surrounded by droids were both things that Clone Wars lovers won't forget anytime soon. Number 4, Then You Will Die, Star Wars Rebels. Joining the likes of both Clone Wars shows as an animated Star Wars series capable of unleashing its fair share of haunting visuals and moments, Star Wars Rebels knew precisely how to hit you right in the feels too. Season 2's emotional finale, Twilight of the Apprentice, did exactly that and then some, with this being the episode when Ahsoka Tano finally came face to face with the Sith Lord her master had become. It's during that sequence when arguably the most affecting and unforgettable moment of the entire show occurs. Outside of perhaps the death of beloved Jedi Knight Kanan Jarrus, of course. I'm still not over it. With the two powerful Force users clashing at the Sith Temple on Malachor, the truth she suspected was finally confirmed as she cracked open his iconic helmet with her lightsaber. Despite briefly showing a flicker of the Sky Guy she once knew though, Darth Vader's response to her saying she will not leave him this time is as haunting today as it was back when the episode debuted in 2016. Then you will die. She's thankfully saved by Ezra Bridger in the world between worlds before Vader can make good on his words. But the damage was already done. Viewers knew Vader was still a few years away from returning to the light side, of course. But for a second there, they couldn't help but hope that Tano, of all people, could remind him who he still was deep down. That shot of his yellow, rage-filled eye burning a hole through his former apprentice's head here will never not haunt heartbroken fans' minds, even in the wake of their less devastating reunion in the Ahsoka series. Number 3, Chewbacca cries for Han Solo, Episode 7, The Force Awakens. As far as traumatic Star Wars moments go, they don't come much more painful than watching one of the iconic original trilogy heroes being horrifically murdered. By his own son, no less. Though fans did have a bad feeling about this potentially being Harrison Ford's last hurrah coming into Episode 7, The Force Awakens. I mean, he had been trying to get Han Solo killed for years, don't forget. That still didn't change the fact that this one hurt then, and still does now. Arguably, the thing that made Kylo Ren's fatal stabbing of his own legendary father the sequel trilogy's most haunting scene wasn't even the death itself, though. It was Solo's broken best mate's upsetting response to it. Forced to watch on from afar, a powerless Chewbacca can only let out a roar of anguish as he witnessed his longtime pal perish before his very eyes. He'd at least fire off a shot at Ren, get to wipe out a few incoming stormtroopers, and help the Resistance blow up Starkiller Base in the aftermath. But that still didn't bring Han back, did it? It also didn't erase the soul-piercing sound of Chewie's pained cries from the minds of fans utterly moved by this whole sequence. It brings a damn tear to your eye just thinking about it almost a decade later. Wait, what? Oh my god, we're getting old. Number 2, Vader arrives, Jedi Fallen Order. It's not just those Star Wars shows and movies that can leave a mark on fans. Video games set in this galaxy far, far away have been known to unleash the odd, completely jaw-dropping and memorable moment too. Jedi Fallen Order undoubtedly contains one such sequence, with the conclusion of Cal Kestis' showdown with the second sister Trilla within the Fortress Inquisitorius, leading to the return of a terrifying legend. Just as Sia attempted to redeem her old Padawan Trilla, the unmistakable sound of Darth Vader's ominous breathing was soon heard. You could cut the tension with a lightsaber as some properly haunting music begun playing out, with players instantly sharing Cal's feeling of this not looking all that good. The way he coldly chopped down Trilla without hesitation was obviously shocking, but Vader's unrivaled presence before that murder alone was petrifying enough for Fallen Order fans to not forget in a hurry. Add in Cal and Sia being unable to keep this insurmountable cyborg down as he frighteningly refused to stop hunting them within the underwater building, and you have a Star Wars video game sequence that is just as distressing and haunting as anything you'll see on the big or small screen. Number 1, Burying the Clones, Star Wars The Clone Wars. The hugely emotional finale to the 7-season ride that was Star Wars The Clone Wars didn't just unleash one truly haunting moment, it chucked out many. Just when fans had gotten over one traumatic visual, like watching Ahsoka Tano and Captain Rex being fired at by their one-time 332nd company friends and brothers post-Order 66, Dave Filoni and the gang completely floored them with another. In the wake of managing to somehow avoid being killed by these brainwashed 501st troopers and escaping the Venator-class Star Destroyer they'd been traveling on before it crashed into a nearby moon, Tano and Rex then opted to bury some of the fallen soldiers. The image of Ahsoka looking out at the crowd of helmets, many of them sporting her own facial markings, and remembering the brave clones who had been forced to betray the Jedi is an all-timer Star Wars moment, one that was only enhanced by Kevin Kiner's moving Burying the Dead theme. Not done imprinting hugely powerful shots into the minds of viewers though. The episode then ends with Darth Vader eventually discovering that same sight. Here, the one-time Anakin Skywalker picked up the lightsaber his former Padawan had left behind as a way of faking her own death, clocked Morai flying high above him, and ultimately walked away from one remaining 332nd helmet. The poignant final shot of Vader moving away from the world he left behind in the reflection of a single clone helmet, and all of the above moments ensured that victory in death was one of the most overwhelming experiences Star Wars fans had ever gone through, and one many never truly recovered from.